Well, the game is about Rayman and his best friend sidekick Glowbox, and two crafty wizards who join him in this full-player co-op adventure to save the Glade, because the great creator, who's known as the Bubble Dreamer, who's basically just this fun-loving guy who likes to play and have fun and eat and do a lot of silly things, starts to have nightmares. And Rayman is the one that actually kicks off these nightmares by snoring a bit too loud. And that's about as deep as it gets in the Rayman game, because the whole thing is about 2D, you know, full-out fun flow, arcade-style, traditional, you know, retro gameplay.
We also got a whole bunch of questions from our community. Billy91, he wonders how the experience was to make a Rayman game in 2D like the old days instead of 3D.
What was so unique about Rayman 1 is that we worked with artists that were not necessarily just in the video game industry, and what makes Rayman Origins stand out in the same way that that game did is the gorgeous, gorgeous hand-drawn art.
Turbo BS wants to know what the biggest difference is between Rayman Origins and other platform games like Sonic and Little Big Planet.
The beat-em-up element is something that's really unique. I mean, a lot of platformers, you're just kind of running and jumping, especially like a Sonic, it's more of a speed-based thing. But here we incorporate the elements of a classic beat-em-up style. So, yeah, that affects how you're punching your enemies, you're punching through things to progress through the game, but then there's the whole element of being able to punch your friends. Doesn't do any damage, it's just really fun.
The music and the sound design is done purely with real instruments, and the attention to detail and the vibrancy of it, and all of that makes for a much more immersive platforming experience.
Buster King 5 wonders how you came up with the idea to have a character that doesn't have any proper limbs.
That's actually a really fun quick little story to tell, is that Michel told me that when he was 16 and he drew this character, well, he thought he was a terrible artist. And especially when he was confronted with the fact that he had to animate the character. So if you know anything about animation, it gets incredibly difficult to make something look good and fluid in animation if you've got arms and legs. And so it's sort of like a happy accident. And once Rayman was born with no arms and no legs, he just caught on, and he became the iconic character that he is today.
Paul Moss wants to know what aspects of the game will appeal to newcomers to the franchise.
It's really great for people of all ages and all different skill sets, because the 4-player co-op mode is really like a rewarding sort of system. You don't die and then it's over. You know, you die and you turn into a balloon, and basically as long as one of your friends is still alive, you can punch that balloon and bring them back. So it's really a cooperative effort where everyone can get through the game as long as one person stays alive.
Keith Marwa, he doesn't want any spoilers, but he wonders if we get to see old characters from the Rayman universe in Rayman Origins.
We're bringing the famous Livid Stones back, and the Bombastic Hunters, who are really, really evil. They'll see the Piranhas, which I'm sure they'll recognize. And we're really happy to have included in the playable characters the Teensies, who were some of my favorite, and I know some of the fans' favorite characters from Rayman 2. Yeah, so we bring back as many. There are lots of Easter eggs for them to find.
And the Mosquito plays a key part.
Yeah.
You know, once enemy, now friend, is the guy who basically takes you from world to world throughout the game in our shoot-'em-up maps.
Sora13, he wants to know what kind of changes happened to the project when you decided to make a retail game instead of a downloadable game.
You want to take that one?
Yeah, sure. I think we both can. I mean, it's actually a pretty simple answer. The fact is that, you know, we first had an idea. We thought that, okay, we'll break off small chunks of the game and have people download it, and then we started thinking about it more and realizing what a Rayman game really is. And what happens in a Rayman game is you play through a world, you get an ability, you move to the next world, you get an ability, and so on and so on. But that doesn't really work for the episodic format. You would be forced to, download 10 different games essentially in order to have that, and then how do the abilities really translate with that format. It ends up people be paying $100 and $150 or euros to experience all that, and really what came to be is that this game really is just a full game. We had so many great ideas for worlds, and we wanted it to have the structure of a classic Rayman game, so in the end it was kind of a no-brainer to make it a full product.
Rick27 wants to know if we are going to see another Rayman game in 3D. because Rayman was awesome.
Well, he'll have
Thanks,
to tell
man.
us if, yeah, exactly. Thank you. I was going to say he'll have to tell us what he thinks of this new 2D Rayman Origins, and see if he likes it as much as the 3D before we answer that question.
Yeah.
Okay. Herbert Dreisma has an interesting question. Does Rayman ever get a haircut?
That is so funny. But no, he definitely couldn't afford that, because then he'd run off the edges of cliffs and die, which
Yeah.
would be bad.
If he lost any of those locks for his helicopter, he'd be in big trouble.
Last question from Macho Man Macho. Does Rayman have a girlfriend?
Raynette! Of course. You just have never seen her before.
Ms. Rayman?
I've seen her, Raynette. She looks just like him. She's equally attractive.